Number 4 of Edwin Friedman's 4 main problems with approach to leadership in American culture reads as follows: a widespread misunderstanding about the relational nature of destructive processes in families and institutions that leads leaders to assume that toxic forces can be regulated through reasonableness, through love, through insight, if I could just explain it to them, role modeling, inculcation of values, and striving for consensus. It prevents them from taking the kinds of stands that set limits to the invasiveness of those who lack self-regulation. Now, this one I still have some trouble with, as I hinted at before, but I like the first part. So many problems in the church are relational problems. They're not policy problems. They're not technical problems. They're problems of relationship. Let me tell you one story. One church I served in had 2 key leadership people, a lady who ran the women's outreach and a man who was the treasurer, who were always at odds in any kind of public meeting. If he were for it, she were against it, and if she were for it, he were against it. And it became obvious as a almost knee-jerk reaction kind of thing that had nothing to do with whatever the particular proposal or issue was. And this would get really nasty at what we call congregational meetings, general meetings. And so there was one where it got really, really nasty. And I tried to control it as the pastor and put rules and regulations in place to manage their conflict. But sure enough, there came a point where they just started bickering across. They were sitting across the aisle from each other and just started bickering, and nobody else, like everything else, stopped. At that point, I was fairly new in ministry, and so I got curious, and I went and talked with each of those couples. There were 2 couples there, but it was mainly the man from one and the woman from the other that had this problem. And I found out that some 20 years before that, they had owned land together as 2 families. And the woman in the one couple was not happy with the price they got when they sold that land and divided the proceeds. And so she felt ripped off by the man who was kind of leading the process in the other couple. And there you have it. It's a relational problem that for 20 years had caused spilt blood and tears in the aisle at congregational meetings. And so you could try and persuade either one of them that this particular proposal was good or not, but it has nothing to do with that. It has to do with their emotional state in relation to the people involved with the particular problem. So, a widespread misunderstanding about the relational nature of destructive processes in families and institutions that leads leaders to assume that toxic forces can be regulated. And I'll stop there. So what we try to do, especially in churches, is we believe that just extending grace to people can resolve problems that we have, that they are having or that we are having with them. That if we can just give a reasonable explanation, or if we can just love them a little more, if we can just explain it very clearly one more time. This is the one I fall down on all the time. I just keep believing that if I just explain it one more time, all of a sudden the light bulb will go on for everybody like it did for me at one point, and they'll go, oh, let's do that. Others believe that it can be fixed by role modeling or by teaching them better ways to present their complaints, or some values. No, wait a minute, we don't talk to each other that way. Inculcation of values, or processes that strive for consensus, mediation processes that try and bring things to a middle. And what he basically in church language says is it's a failure to hold each other accountable. and to actually confront or challenge the brokenness that creates so much problems, the fallenness, the evil that people embrace or that they're captivated by. I ran into this once in a congregation where an older gentleman was what I would call a groper. So he would find opportunities to touch young women in places that were inappropriate. And when that became public at a leadership meeting, then it was interesting to watch all of these. Well, the baseball bats isn't in his list here, but well, maybe somebody should go talk to him. Somebody said, and well, he's had a rough life. All those kinds of things came into the picture, and nobody was willing to have me as the pastor or anybody go and say, I think there's a problem, say to the couple that was of which he was the husband. I think there's a problem here, and I think something needs to be done about it. Nobody wanted to do that either, right? So some people are so in the grip of problems that kindness is not going to fix them, and something else needs to be done. Now I'm hesitating because I'm very uncomfortable saying that, and yet I've seen angles on this again and again. So those are the four things that that Edwin Friedman had identified as problematic with our understanding of leadership. And like I said, some of these other writers built on that, but I'll stop this series of videos there and I'll post them, and I might not even make them public yet, but we'll see. But if this has value to you, and I do have made them public, then please let me know, because then I'll do more of these. I have tons of material to share, but it's a bit time consuming to prepare this stuff, and I don't want to waste my time either. Shalom and serenity till you see me again.